So how you will key concept exactly you need to able to explain that what is the infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service, and what are the different services come into this kind of categories, correct? Then what are the different kind of cloud providers, right? And their services, price models, and deployment strategies, right? So when we are talking about deployment strategies, and there are other services which you are they provide it, correct? So these are, at least you should be having a good understanding about it as per your, you can say, job profile. So when we are talking about the job profile, DevOps engineers has to be a great good understanding for a DevOps services. You can say if you are talking about developer, you should have a full stack developer related services, right? If you are preparing for or planning for a data engineering side services, or if you are planning for any other what we can call as uh, for machine learning or data science, so data science related services, you should be having a fair idea about it, correct? Then there is a very common thing related to cloud security. When you are talking about the cloud security, so AWS firewall or firewall concept, firewall rules into a GCP is very much important. So different kind of a configuration you need to have a idea about it. When we are talking about firewalls, how to create security groups, right? How you can create a routing table, how you will use a routing table and network access control list with security group, which is you will going to use in which particular scenarios, right? Then also there is a concept of AWS firewall. So what are the different configuration and when you are going to use AWS firewall, correct? When you are going to use with VPs, your particular application is connecting to some other environment, then how you will ensure that VPC level of security. So VPC level of security, or when you have a VPC, so VPC integration, then how you will ensure the security, correct? Then also concept of your authentication and authorization, right? So there are a different services and different setup, service to service communication also. And when individual person is performing some operations, so how you will ensure the different kind of a securities. So this security related questions are very much important. That is you need to be having a fair idea about it. So because if you are setting up your entire three-tier application, this database should not be into a public subnet. It has to be always into a private subnet. So when you will go, use internet gateway will be used for which of the services, right? So if you are not using, creating your, exposing your service into a, through a public subnet, and there is a no internet gateway is attached, in that scenario, how you will expose your service to a entire world here, correct? So this is some of the kind of different kind of a configuration related to your cloud security, correct? If you wanted to restrict some of the, you can say, IP address, and particularly you wanted to give an access for a particular protocol for a particular port, how you will do this kind of a setup, right? So these are some of the very common scenarios which you need to understand, and this is very much required for a developer front, correct? If without doing this, you won't be able to deploy and test your single application here, correct? Then there are some other questions which is related to what we can say scaling. So scaling, we already discussed that how you will go with the auto scaling, right? If you can think about it into some different indirect questions, then also you need to talk about high availability, right? And you can say fault tolerance. So these kind of indirect questions will also come with the scaling, right? And then also there is when you are creating a improving the performance. So that performance improvement, how you wanted to do it, correct? So these are something you need to understand and you need to explain it, correct? And there is a different scenario based questions. So this is I am asking very directly, but if I will give it to you, let's say that one of that simple is IRCTC, every day you will see 10 o'clock very heavy traffic and this site is not responding. So one person is hiring to you as a developer or as an architect. So can you give some kind of a solutions to this? Exactly how you will improve the performance. So as a basic 3 to 5 year developer, nobody will ask to you this kind of a question. But as a senior person, definitely they will going to ask to you this kind of a questions. Simple developer, they will just 5 year, you can say 6 years developers, they will ask for that. What is auto scaling, configurations, how you will use auto scaling, or very specific to service level configuration and questions which they are looking for it. correct? But design and architecting kind of a questions here, majorly people who are 8 year, 9 year plus, they need to answer and they need to give it to you this kind of an answer. So scenario based question, very simple, and it is a real time scenario, right? In the same time, many such time you will see a very so much heavy orders on and one of that, let's say a Reliance Jio side. So how you will wanted to help, and this is happen only a particular dates and particular time only, correct? So we need a very specific solution for that, so that it will has to be very cost optimized also. So how you can provide the complete solution for this scenario here? So this is very, this kind of a questions you need to address it, correct? And if you will see nowadays, there are people who are already having a maybe some kind of architect level of certifications, design experience like this. They are really paid very heavily. Correct. So if you have a design experience, if you have a development good experience and core technology design experience like this, and some sort of a DevOps tools, so your profile will be always ranked on very high. Correct. So you can also check for Naukri. This Naukri number of jobs you will see, and the pay scale which these cloud developer, cloud engineers, and cloud DevOps engineers are getting paid for it. Correct. And still it is very niche. If you are having a Java full stack and microservices, along with this, if you have a cloud experience, your profile will be very niche. If you have a DevOps engineer and if you have a cloud experience with this, your profile will be very niche, right? So it's like that. If you need to have a good hands-on experience, right? So you need can use that star method here. So structure your answer using a task, action, result format, and clearly convey your experience. So this is the way how you can communicate when you are answering to any particular question here, right? So what are the tasks you have performed, right? What was the actually task was there? What is the action you have done it? And what is the result you got it? So the way you have solved particular problem, that is the method you can use it for a describe your particular, you can say, experience in any particular situation like this, right? So very common thing they people are asking to you, what is the topmost or toughest challenge you have faced it, and how you solve it. So you can use this particular method to reply and you can give an answer to that scenario, right? Like this. So that is it with respect to now you can, if you ever really wanted to go ahead with particularly demonstrate your work here, you can also create your Git repository. You can have some sample projects or showcasing like that, or if you have any other, you can say, way where you can provide that some social media proof or something like that, it will be always good. And the certification have a much more, so much value. So if you have done any particular certification, right? Either if you are certified for AWS Cloud Architect, or you can say Solution Architect, or GCP Architect, or Cloud Developer, AWS Developer, or GCP Developer, or Azure, any kind of certification, you will get so much opportunities, right? And people look for this kind of a professional into very different ways. So certification can really help it to you. And good thing is that you will get encounter so many different kind of questions when you are doing a certification. So the same question, if I am asking to you, right, how you will create a replicas when we are talking about for RDS. So when you will create a replicas, what is the actually where it is going to help it to you, correct? So the another question, if I will ask to you, when you will go with the high availability for a particularly RDS, right? So how you will use, or you can provide the high availability. These kind of questions you will also get it into your how this setting you will be done into your with the help of these services and the configuration you will do it, and also different solution kind of a questions you will see into your AWS Solution Architect exam also. So if you will tap it to a particular exam preparation, these questions will automatically, you will get it and you will understand it, right? How you can use. So what is the different zones, right? So why you need a concept of a different, right? You will have a different reasons and zones, right? So what is the need of to create the application into a different zone, right? And actually what is the concept of a zones here, right? This is very important, right? And on which basis you will choose that your application will be deployed and your machine will be getting created to a very specific reason, correct? So there are some considerations, and what are the considerations, right? So why you are choosing a very specific reason, and why you are choosing a different zones when you are creating a setting up the application here. So this is also very important here. So if you wanted to have some kind of a backup of your, you can say working copy here. So what are the different services and facility AWS provided? Correct. So let's say if I wanted to have that everything is machine in setup here, right? If you wanted to create or the machine again with the same set of softwares and everything, how you can do it? Correct. And which scenarios you will do it? So there are certain scenarios, as I told you, that every Sunday I need, you can say my site has so much traffic here. So I need that machine on every Sunday. Correct, not on all 6 days. So in that scenario, how you will provide and what kind of a setup you will provide it, right? So that I will get that machine on every Sunday only and not for 6 days. So charges will be applied on only for Sunday. Correct, so that I can accumulate or address all my traffic related issues here. Correct. So this kind of a questions, if you will understand it, you can easily answer it. And if you will prepare for a certification, you will be easily answer. And then your knowledge level will also be a very different, right? So the people who prepare for a certification and clear the certification, they will know that, and they already gone through so many different kind of a scenario based questions and practice, right? So you don't need to be think too much about to answer this kind of a questions here. Correct. Now, if you're so there are problem solving skills you need to so practice coding problems. So definitely you need to do so much coding problems as we are talking about. So if you are deploying one of that, let's say a Node.js application, so what are the steps you follow? Correct. If you are deploying any other, let's say static sites, or if you, let's say one of that stack application you wanted to deploy with the Lambda. So what are the steps you will follow or how you will configure it? Correct. And if you are using AWS, this Lambda with the API gateway, so what are the steps you will take it up when you are creating an API gateway to connect to AWS Lambda and you are deploying AWS Lambda, your Express.js application? Correct. So in that scenario, you need to able to demonstrate that complete set of pictures, how you are creating API gateway, how you are creating a AWS Lambda, and how you are deploying your application onto a AWS Lambda. If you will go with the GCP, then also you or Azure also you will have a app engine. So how you will use the app engine, right? And you can deploy the application. And then if you wanted to have any load balancer like this, or if you wanted to go with something kind of as a API gateway, so then how you will create and you can deploy it. So some of the companies has a very specific requirement. They look for AWS experience. If they are using a GCP, they look for a GCP experience. Some of the people are looking for a, what we can say, very specific to a Azure experience because they are using Azure like this. So they can use and they look for experience into this particularly cloud here. Correct. So many such people already with us. One of this guy was having, I guess, 12 years of experience, has done that AWS certification, has gone through particularly a complete curriculum. His name is Sandeep, right? So he joined as a solution architect into one of the company and with really a good hike and good pay. Correct. Apart from that, there are some more people are also who has already worked with as a Java full stack technologies. Later, they have gone through a microservices with cloud development, and really they got a good appreciation, crack some of the good interviews. Correct. So any particular time, if you wanted to have a good experience with microservices, with Java, with cloud deployment, and you can say architecture, it will give a much more sense. Correct. In the same way, if you are working as a DevOps engineer, so like a Kubernetes, Docker, Terraform, along with this, if you have one of that cloud experience, your profile will be really is into a what we can say the ranking very high. Correct. So this way you can have a good what we can call as expertise, and if you will try with some of that real-time scenarios. So one of the real-time scenarios, if you are creating a complete pipeline with the different stages, like with SonarQube integration with different, you can see if you wanted to deploy on AWS Elastic Kubernetes service, right, using the Jenkins, right, and how you will deploy and you can set it up. So in that is a very scenario-based questions. So if you have done it, then you can demonstrate and how I can demonstrate and how I can do it, that setting up the complete pipeline, right? So and how you will create a YAML files, what are the configuration you will do, how you will create setting up the Jenkins, Docker, and then you can set it up that complete pipeline for deploying one of the microservice. Correct. So if you are creating a microservice, how the microservice and microservices are getting communicated with each other. Correct. So if you will deploy the service, how, what are the setting and that setup you will do it. These services are able to connect to each other. Correct. So that is also you need to able to explain, and then later you also need to able to explain how you will monitor these services. So what are the different tools you will going to use, and what are the different services from the cloud you are going to use it. Correct. So there are AWS CloudWatch, AWS CloudTrail. You already have it idea. So these are all AWS services which we use and which we can fetch the data and which from different, you can say, services we can monitor here. Correct. Apart from that, you can also set it up your Prometheus, Grafana, or ELK stack, right? So in that scenario, how you can monitor to these services or how you can set it up. So like this, these are a very specific questions which you need to prepare for either as for a developer also, or maybe if you are setting up for a particularly a DevOps engineer also, correct? For a developer, then creating a different databases, right? Then are a different type of databases, right? NoSQL databases, right? And SQL databases on AWS, what are the difference, right? And then in which scenarios which you will going to use it, right? So you will have a Amazon Athena, right? There is a Amazon Aurora, and there are other databases also which is AWS provided, right? So in which particular scenarios you will going to use it, and what are the benefits for that? So when we are talking about especially for benefits, so these benefits you need to be aware about it, right? So if you are, which is the particular database is very much compatible with the kind of documents or compatible with the MongoDB. Correct. So that is some of the questions. Then there are questions related to migrations. So migration related questions is when you are migrating, right? And now there is also word coming under for modernization of an application. So migration is related to another concept. If there is a many such applications are getting migrated, right? So when we are talking about applications related to a migration, so migrations are when we if you are migrating your code or database or everything into a AWS services, so what are the different approaches? What are the different services are there? Correct. These are very simple and straightforward questions for a junior level. But if you will go with the, you can say solution level or senior people, so the questions will be a much more solution level. How you will completely provide a complete solution for migrating entire application into an AWS. So what are the different services you are going to use it, how you will do the migration, how you will set up that cost effectiveness, and what are the strategies you will use for cost effectiveness, correct? What are the architecture you will set it up on the AWS and how you will deploy. So everything will be getting covered when we are talking about the migration and solution based question here, correct? So this is when we are talking about migration. So migration, there are a different, so many services are there AWS or also on GCP or Azure, right? You can also look for migration related services, and this is a very important task, migration, and it is very much in demand also, right? How you will do the migration, right? Apart from that, there is also in the similar word, there is a concept of a modernization also. So there are a ready-made APIs are also there, right? So when you are going to use it, so recently we have covered at one of the service for AWS AppSync, right? Which is providing ready-made GraphQL APIs. So ready-made GraphQL APIs, which you can use it for integrated, and you can develop your GraphQL APIs for your application and you can use it. Correct. So like this, there are many such different kind of solutions and services need to be, you need to understand. So direct question is, if you are going to use that GraphQL APIs like that on AWS or any other, what are the different APIs are available? Right, and how you can configure it, how you can provide, and you can do the setup, right? So this is having, you should have some hands-on experience so that you can provide the ready-made solution here, correct? So this way you can have a much more idea about it, and you can prepare for cloud interviews, right? There are many such, so many questions we can provide it apart from this, right? But idea is when you are going for any other cloud development interview questions, so the interview questions will be very specific to job role, will be very specific to a particular, you can say, industry, particularly experience on particular cloud also. Correct. So this is which we are talking about it, but learning with the cloud will also going to help it to you very much, and it will give a completely a different flavor, and you can have a much more better hike, and you will have a much more better negotiation power when we are talking about cloud certifications, and if you have a good sound hands-on into a cloud here.